Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm still the foul-voiced Peter Moses with my co-host, the slinky-voiced John Sharan, and Ardina Seward.
He's not a slinky voice. He's the
silky voice.
He's the you've got mail voice.
he is kind of robotic, and so is the laugh. The laugh sounds like it comes from a robot. Anyway, how are you guys doing? I know John is flying because even though he's supposed to be covering sports as an observer and not a rooter, John was rooting for West Point, for Army, to beat Miami University, which they did on Saturday, 31-30, and he's been rubbing it in since the second I walked into the studio.
Ardina, have I been rubbing anything in?
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's been a civil debate, and you know something? It's serendipity, because we were supposed to have an immigration attorney, Michael Wildis, on the show today, who had to cancel out at the last minute, understood, because he's gonna be on November 5th. But in his stead, we have the legendary former sportscaster for Eyewitness News and former colleague, or present colleague, the one and only Jerry Azar. Now, how's that for an introduction there, Jerry?
Jerry,
I'm not dead yet. You know, there are reports, but I think I'm still. Well, anyway.
By the way,
hi guys, nice to be with you today.
Have you ever had a bigger fangirl than Ardina?
Myself.
It's love-hate.
It's amazing. I mean, I've never seen such fandom on our air. My goodness, yes. Ardina. Why don't you just marry him?
Oh, my God.
Listen, I've already made one woman miserable in her life, and she got a divorce. Why make someone else miserable?
I don't know. I think Ardina likes misery. But apart from
Wait a minute, can you guys give me just like 5 seconds here? I'm signing autographs. No one's asked for any. I'm just signing autographs. But go ahead.
Now, you covered sports in New York for quite a long time. Do you remember Ray Caruth, the wide receiver?
Yeah, sure.
Ray,
absolutely.
the wife beater, Caruth?
No, he wasn't a wife beater. He killed her in a drive-by shooting.
Well, there you go.
He got released from prison today after 17 years.
And he's changing his name. Caruth was his mother's name, and he's going to take his father's name as he tries to slip back into society unnoticed. I think it's after 18 years.
No, it ain't happening. We know who he is, and we know where he lives.
I don't know where he lives.
Well,
I do
John,
not either.
Do you want to know where he lives?
I would prefer that he not live anywhere near me.
But
I've been told that too, but that's another story.
So before we get to sports, I'd like to talk a couple of minutes. You lived for quite a long time in the Republican state of Indiana, correct?
Yeah, perennial red state.
Okay.
Terre Haute, to be exact.
Yes.
I think now
home
it should
of
be
Indiana
called,
State University, Larry Bird, and gymnast Kurt Thomas.
I think it should be renamed Terror Haute because they have really
well,
they have some
you're
very
pretty close.
They have some very strident views on politics. Are you surprised the way the politics in the nation changed when you look at your home state, which is the home of the largest group of KKK members, and you've elected Republicans for years there? Ardina's mouth is open.
I'm
you didn't know
stunned.
about Jerry? You know about the KKK in the state of Indiana, don't you?
You're absolutely right. You know, the South gets a bad name, and they have a history.
They deserve it.
Indiana and Ohio are the birthplaces of the KKK.
I heard it was Indiana, not Ohio. But okay.
Jerry,
If you look it up.
But as a Syrian Sicilian person, how was it growing up in Terre Haute? I mean, did you catch heat for your?
Well, wait a minute. You didn't give my lineage completely. I am 1/3 Sicilian, 1/3 Middle Eastern, and 1/3 Rottweiler. So that's
I thought you were 2% non-fat dry milk. That's what the DNA that I saw said.
But how was it growing up? I mean, did you?
Wait a minute. Well, can he answer my question first?
Okay. Go ahead.
I hate it when my children fight. It upsets me.
Well, are you surprised at all at how the national politics have changed in the past couple of years, given your relationship to your home state and the unrest that exists there?
I'm not really. I'm not. You know, you live this long. I'm not surprised by too much. What I don't know if I'm going to answer your question. What I'm surprised at is people missing the target, because all these people who blame Donald Trump and are anti-Trumpers, and it is unbelievable, they're missing the target. You know, the real target is Hillary Clinton. She lost the election. You know, you look at Trump at these rallies, he'd go, "Can you believe I'm president? Can you believe I'm president?" He can't believe it. He can't believe he won. And you had such a flawed candidate and a flawed campaign and a terminally flawed person that lost the election that could not be lost. So, you know, instead of blaming Trump, aim at where it's supposed to be.
Okay, well, I think John is shaking his head yes to that.
Of course. He's applauding.
Ardina and I are sitting there shrugging, saying, I have no idea how this conversation went off the rails like that, but it has. We have with us today the sage, Jerry Azar. I'm not a fanboy. I'll let Ardina take care of that. But we're going to a Fox News and Fox Business break, and I think they would agree with Jerry's analysis so far. Ardina, you agree?
I don't know. He may flip the coin on the other side of the break.
I love Fox
I'm hopeful.
News.
All right, well, he loves Fox News. Well, that says a lot, in my opinion. Anyway, we're going to be going to a break in a very few seconds, and this is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. Ardina and John after the break, and Jerry, you too.
Welcome back to Westchester Eye on the Radio, our weekly discussion of issues relating to Westchester and the surrounding area. I'm John Sharan, along with Ardina Seward and Peter Moses, and our special on the telephone line guest, phone-in guest, Jerry Azar, longtime sportscaster with WABC Channel 7 here in New York. And Jerry, we were talking a little bit about politics beforehand, and the situation, you having a long connection with Indiana. Maybe we can shift a little now to sports, since the World Series begins tomorrow night. Do you think that the baseball situation is something that other sports can look to as something to try to copy? Because baseball has had more different champions in recent years than any other sport.
Yeah, no repeats since those great Yankee teams that won 4 in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was really, when you look back, that's an unbelievable team. But you're thinking, should the other teams think about baseball getting, well, people like dynasties. Don't you agree with that?
I think that dynasties work both ways. If you're in the town where the dynasty is happening, you cheer for it. And if you're not, you cheer against them. I mean, I think we can look at the Patriots and Brady, that it explains why once upon a time the Cowboys were America's team. Now, not so much. And while either you're a Patriots fan or you're somebody who says, I root for my team and whoever's playing the Patriots.
Yeah, you mentioned something about Dallas. I heard something today. It's like the 25th anniversary of Dallas winning their last Super Bowl. Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm. They were emphasizing that on the Sunday shows.
Gotta love that myself. I hate the Cowboys.
Well, you know, I don't know about this. You're saying it's you, Peter, and Ardina against John and me. So we've got our own little rivalry going here. And I think that's going to be a rout for somebody.
Sounds like a tag team match.
Cage match.
Well, you and I have the biggest mouths, and you have the biggest nose. So that's.
Ooh! Are we on radio? Or let's get a close-up here.
So getting back to the politics for him. Actually, John, you want to stick with sports?
No. I mean, I was
so are you rooting for one of the teams in this World Series?
What John said, something about the Patriots and what used to be the Cowboys, it's to go back in time a little bit, it's the Cosell theory. You love them, you hate them, but you watch them, and you're into it. So they get both sides of the street working.
Touche.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good quote.
I like to talk about...
Do you know his house is for sale?
Whose?
Howard Cosell?
His house is for sale up in northern Westchester. It's $7 million. It looks low-key and tasteful. The complete opposite.
I wish you could say the same thing about Cosell.
I loved Howard. Howard. That whole ABC group, unbelievable.
When I was 12 years old, or 14 years old, I grew up in Portchester, and they used to have, the men's club would have a yearly sports breakfast. And one year we had Howard Cosell. And being 14 years old and a future reporter, I stood up and I asked every question. I didn't let anybody else talk for like an hour. And at the end,
changed?
And at the end of it, he said, "How old are you, young man?" I said, "I'm 14 years old." He goes, "You have the biggest mouth for a 14-year-old I ever heard in my life." And to which I received a standing ovation, or he did. I think he did, but I took it as my standing ovation. That's a true story.
And you got infected by that forever, right? Once you get something like that, it stays with you.
He was mini-me.
I was not mini. I was
Howard
nothing like.
Cosell's
No, I
mini-me.
was not. No, I was not. I was nothing like Howard Cosell.
Oh,
John's more like Howard Cosell than I am.
Oh, no.
Oh, please.
He is.
No.
Highly opinionated, knows everything. Come on.
Well, Jerry, what about, let's talk about politics.
Wait, until the bottom of the hour. Let's talk about sports. Who do you like in football this year? And we'll go to politics after the
I was
break.
about to say how politics have leaked into sports.
Well, this is one of the reasons I think we're going to get into the NFL ratings, which took a beating last year. Now the ratings are up. So saying, why are the ratings are up? Well, first of all, they're not showing people kneeling for the national anthem. The networks, all these brilliant people with all the resources finally figured it out. If you don't want to alienate people, don't show them that. They're not showing the national anthem.
But I'll point out, Jerry,
they're not getting injured. They're protecting the quarterback. Sports is built on stars and superstars, and they've had close games. So it's a comeback year for the NFL because they're keeping the politics out of it as much as they can.
But I'll point out, Jerry, that for the games from London that they've shown, they have gone out of their way to show the national anthems, and it has been, I think, significant that you did not see any players kneeling for any of those games.
Yeah, that was pretty. I watched that yesterday, and I was really keen on that same what you were doing. So it was good to see that.
I'm waiting for the first Muslim American to make the NFL, and when it comes time for prayer, not just on their knees, but on the ground, and seeing what America does with that. That'd be a person just celebrating their religion. What would happen then in America?
I don't know about that one. You know what I was thinking about when they were doing the national anthem? I mean, if it had done God Bless America or America the Beautiful, would it have been the same thing? What do you guys think?
I think it would have been. I think that I saw that there was a presentation made or a request made to the NFL from a fan, and it made a lot of sense to me that, and it was a military veteran who made it. He said, there's no reason to co-opt the national anthem. If they want to truly have some recognition of injustice out there, they can ask for a moment of silence either before it or after it, and everybody can get a piece of the pie.
Well, remember that, but though that Francis Scott Key, who wrote the national anthem, was a slaveholder, and there was a section of that anthem that was omitted because it called for slavery, and it talked about the inferiority of blacks. So,
did not know that.
Oh yes,
great,
oh,
Ardina.
yes.
Good
oh,
research.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, this is so. There's, I mean, it's not talked about because obviously the national anthem is promoted for its best interest. But
also, it is promoted on that original verse, which does not include the offensive language.
Does not include the offensive language. So in terms
Remember
of,
we had a guy on a couple of years ago who wrote the book on the history of the Star Spangled Banner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to separate the Star Spangled Banner from God Bless America from other patriotic songs that have different origins, different histories, different intents.
Indeed.
Well, also, they've proven that the American military buys time and pays the NFL to have the flag out there and all the patriotism
and the flyovers.
Yeah, so it's pay to play, basically.
Yes, exactly.
That's absolutely right. We're talking about sports and politics here on Westchester Eye on the Radio on WVOX 1460 AM and heard worldwide at WVOX.com. I'm John Charan, along with Ardina Seward, Peter Moses, and our special phone-in guests, Jerry Azar, longtime sportscaster with WABC Channel 7.
An Indiana Republican.
And an Indiana Republican. That is absolutely
God.
right. And we're going to have more conversation with Jerry about those topics and others here right after a brief Fox News break. So stay tuned.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
We are back on. We are into our next half hour of Westchester Eye on the Radio. I am Ardina Seward along with Peter Moses. John, you've got mail, Sharan.
What does that mean?
Because it's his voice. It stays in my head. You've got mail. And speaking of male, M-A-L-E, testosterone-fueled male, we've got Jerry Azar.
I think it's just gas.
Don't get Jerry started. Jerry Azar, who is a phone-in guest, formerly of Terre Haute, Indiana, but now in New York City. And Jerry, we were talking during the break about, of course, about sports and about, I raised the issue about women in the locker room. And I don't know if you remember a little incident that you and I had with a football player named Cedric Mentor.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Refresh my memory.
Okay.
He was a running back.
This was back in the day, long before the much-needed Me Too movement. Anyway, Mentor was sitting down, and, of course, you had the microphone, I had the camera, and another player got behind Mentor, and I got to figure out how to say this delicately. He kind of pushed his naked body against Mentor's back, and
Mentor sang in high
and
G
displayed a portion of his anatomy throughout the interview.
And you were there?
I had to figure out a way to crop that portion of that player's anatomy out of the frame. And
you think I'm getting a visual of that part of his anatomy in my nose, and I'm getting scared.
Well, it was one of those great moments.
Jerry, this is an afternoon show
Of sports history and women in the locker room. But anyway, we were able, I think we had to pixelate part of his right shoulder to obscure that portion of anatomy. But the point I'm trying to make is that it was kind of done to embarrass me, embarrass other females in the locker room. And we've moved forward. We've moved ahead. At one point, I remember that Parcells wanted to ban women in the locker room.
No, he did ban.
He did
Then
ban women in the locker room, but it was very brief because we made a lot of noise and said that wasn't going to happen.
Brief? You had to use the word brief?
Well, there was a lot of lack of briefs in those locker rooms. So
what do you think ever happened to Cedric Mentor after he left the NFL after 2 years?
Viagra.
No, he's the assistant principal at Fairmount Junior High School in Boise, Idaho, where he went to college.
Thank you with the obsessive-compulsive note of the day.
So Jerry, let
me tell you something. For equal time, at one point with the Yankees, they banned television cameras, male reporters from the locker room.
Well, that was all part of women being in the locker room. That was all part of
he's talking about...
That was all part of Billy Martin paranoia.
Working on TV, you weren't allowed in.
Can I just say one thing here, just to interrupt for just a second? And while working at WABC is one of the highlights, just for the resume to be correct, I worked for the great Mike Bloomberg for 16 years doing TV, radio, and celebrity interviews. So I spent 16 years with Mike.
Yeah, I remember. Yes, absolutely. And you had a long, illustrious career at Bloomberg Radio, being yourself, doing your thing. But what about, how do you think women have evolved? Do you think women have been totally accepted in the locker room, or is it still a kind of, do players still have this sense of women should not be there?
Well, to answer that question as honestly as I can't talk too much about women in the locker room. I'm having trouble getting women in my apartment. So I can't worry about the locker room now.
Oh, I can see where you're shying away from the topic.
No, I'm not shying away. I think there's an acceptance. But in a way, you look at this, the formatic part of all broadcasts. Two guys, except for Jessica Mendoza doing baseball, two guys in the booth, women on the sidelines. One woman on one sideline, another woman on the other sideline. So they're such a part of it now that whether or not they want to accept it, they are accepted. Everyone keep their prejudices to themselves.
Did anybody? Well, I forget which broadcast it was yesterday. Whether it was the 425 game, or it was the NBC game, but the referee was a woman, and I didn't think anything of it until later in the game. I said, wait a minute.
And the referee at the Army-Miami game was also
That's
a woman.
who it was.
Yes.
It was the referee at the Miami game.
It was the first time ever there was a woman referee
Right.
at West Point.
And I didn't see any of the players giving her any grief beyond which they would give any other referee.
They did not.
Well, Army wouldn't do it because the referee's the referee. And my college is a very conservative place, so I'm not surprised.
And you're seeing NBA teams hire female assistants for the main team and for the lower teams that they have.
G
there.
League,
They're getting more women involved.
It's not surprising though. I mean, the world is changing. The politics are going backwards, and I think, I'm representing. I'm working with someone running for public office in Westchester County, and we were sitting there last night, and they were decrying that the politics of today have led them to think that we've gone back 50 years, and I'm the only guy at this meeting. And I said to myself, do I say something? Do I give perspective? Or do I just keep my mouth shut? I'm not good at keeping my mouth shut. So I said, you know what? The politics, the national politics that's going on today, and some of the state politics, where Republicans are trying to roll back some of the liberal advancements that have taken place, I think women have been collateral damage, very major collateral damage. I don't think it was set out to go after women. And I think that women have made great strides. I don't think there's full equality yet, and there may not be for
wait till the midterms and you're going to see equality.
You
are going to see a tsunami of women elected to office in the midterms.
Both parties have more candidates than ever before.
I understand that, but Roe v. Wade is going to come up before this Supreme Court before too long. And the conservative bent of the Supreme Court may take away a woman's right to choose. That is a huge step backward. I don't understand why men believe they should be able to tell women what they can and cannot do based on a religious idea that they may or may not share.
So you say it's only men that feel that way?
What? No, I'm not saying it's only men that feel that way.
You say, why should men tell women as if it's only men who have that belief and there's not women who have that belief?
No, they do. That's not what I said. But men believe many men believe they have the right to create that kind of a law. I'm not saying there aren't women who wouldn't do the same thing, but I don't know where men feel they have the right. And with that, in that instance, with the sense of what's going on based solely on that, I would say that they're right. But I think based on everything else in society now, I don't see that. Although there isn't equality in the workplace. Ardina, you worked at ABC News for 30 some odd years.
Yeah.
Did you make the same amount? You did make the same amount of money as the other camera people, right?
Yeah, because I belonged to a union, and that was the union was a godsend. I was fortunate in that I could get equal pay, but I think that if I were not in a union, if I were in a non-union shop,
well, what about
I would not have had that opportunity, and still I had to fight.
Talent is not unionized; they each have an individual contract.
As Jerry knows,
they have it, and in some ways, yes, it was different for the female reporters than it was for the field personnel, for the union people, because female reporters in some ways were discriminated against.
They did make less money. They didn't do.
They made less money.
But people like Marcia Kramer, and people. I mean, Eyewitness News. I know you guys did a lot of crazy things that weren't considered hard news, but the women participated in that the same as the men.
Well,
after
they had
a time.
But you had to become more aggressive. I mean, there was a saying that you never entered the business and left the business as the same person. I think that there is some truth to that, because you have to really push yourself. You have to really be able to hold your own in order to get the respect, in order to be able to do the job. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. That's the name of the game.
And Jerry, we didn't get you to speak a lot during this last segment, but we're going to have to take another break here. You're listening to Westchester Eye on the radio here on WVOX 1460 AM and heard worldwide at WVOX.com. I'm John Charan, along with Ardina Seward and Peter Moses, and our special call-in guest, Jerry Azar, longtime broadcaster with WABC and Bloomberg News. And we're talking about sports, broadcasting, politics, a variety of different things. We're going to have a little bit more conversation after a brief Fox News break, so stay tuned.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Charan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
We are here. We are back. Thanks for sticking with us. We are into our final 10 minutes on Westchester Eye on the Radio.
10 and a half.
10 and a half. 10 and a half. Thanks, Pete. I am Ardina Seward, along with Peter Moses, John Charan, and our out-studio guest, Jerry Azar, affectionately known in the past as Jerry Bizarre.
Dr. Azar.
Or Dr. Azar. Forget
if you
that.
don't respect the man, respect the title.
Forget that doctor crap. You be Jerry Bizarre. So, but we were talking before we went to break. We were talking about women in sports, which I see that you became the Artful Dodger of. But but do you think that there are more? What's happening with female sportscasters? I mean, they're dropping out like flies. Why is that?
Where are they dropping out? I'm seeing an increase. Where are they dropping out?
I'm seeing a lot of female sportscasters having shorter careers, leaving the biz and going elsewhere.
I think what you're seeing are some women sportscasters like Jamel, whose last name is escaping me right now.
Jamel Hill,
who left ESPN because she wants to do politics.
She kind of self-destructed, though.
She did, but at the same time, she made a conscious effort to do that because she felt confined and constrained by the world of sports. And she didn't want to be fighting her employer who wanted ESPN voices to just stick to sports. It was veering off, I think correctly. It was veering off into a lot of politics. And ESPN, after John Skipper left, the guy who took over, decided that they want to be sports-centric and not politically centric. So I think some people like her got out because they wanted more. Now, the ones who've left the business because of personal things, I don't think that's just sports. I think I've been reading across the country with the society we have now, with people being able to find out where people live, find out online their phone numbers. Women are more vulnerable.
Well, the other issue too, Peter, is that you see staffs being reduced nationwide too. You don't see the massive amount of people that were there 20 years ago.
Right, and when the Daily News laid off Susan Watts and Cindy Chin Egan and one other woman photographer,
Todd Mazel's, a lot.
Yeah, they laid off. They fired everybody. It wasn't a gender-centric decision.
Mm-hmm.
So Jerry, but what do you think about that? What do you see?
I think you just gave the Bible when you talked about Jamel Hill and everything was going on that way, so I really can't top that, what you said, Peter. You were right there.
That's because I'm smarter than you.
Well, I don't think, to get back to politics, all the precincts not reporting on that one.
Ooh! Bazinga!
You're talking about women under attack. I don't know if you guys caught this the other night. I'm going to jump to politics for a second. You know who the richest man in the Senate is?
I know the 11th richest senator is McConnell. I don't know the first.
Mitch McConnell is the richest
man
in the Senate.
He is
the majority leader.
He is the 11th.
They had video the other night of him and his wife, Elaine Chao, at a fast food place, sitting in a booth and then being abused verbally. And I said, when a senator, and this has happened, Ted Cruz, other people, members of the cabinet, when that happens, hey, we're in trouble.
Well, this is where I think that the left takes it too far. that there are.
Are you under the impression that Democrats haven't been harassed for years?
They have, but the thing is, you don't go into a place where somebody is eating, where they're having a meal, and then start to berate them. I mean, you can hate
how
their
many
guts,
times
but
have you? Wait. You were in television news. You were with reporters all the time, male and female, Republican and Democrat. How many times were your lunches, other meals, sitting in the truck, interrupted by people who did not like a story your talking head was working on or had worked on?
All the time, but we were fair game because we were media.
Well, and politicians are fair game. They are public figures. I have no issue myself. I don't like if people use
Peter,
profanity.
they may be fair game. They're not big game for people to go hunting.
Well,
drive them out and humiliate them
people were not,
and physically intimidate
people
them.
did not invite Mitch McConnell out to dinner and then attack him. People who were in and around the restaurant saw him and had a visceral reaction to him.
If
That's
they were around the restaurant,
different.
that's one thing. But you cannot
different
come
than the
into
cruise
a restaurant
situation.
where somebody is sitting down, having a meal, and start them. It's just like, I mean, even in news, we had boundaries. There were times when I saw controversial political figures in St. Patrick's Cathedral at Mass, accepting communion on their own time. And that's a place where you don't run up to, you don't take the camera and stick the camera in their face or run up to them and say, oh, I heard that you were accused of such and such and such and such. It simply isn't done.
It is now.
Guys, we do a little history here. The problem with politics, which is a problem, is also politicians. We don't have statesmen like we used to. We don't have a John Kennedy, a JFK, who could reach across the aisle and make deals. LBJ with the Dixiecrats and the Solid South still got civil rights through because he was a strong figure and could get the job done. Ronald Reagan. The tribalism we have now is no longer Democrats and Republicans. It's the Hatfields and McCoys.
That's right.
And they are stirring up the people. And if you're not familiar with the Hatfields and McCoys, go see the miniseries with Kevin Costner and the late Bill Paxton, because it is getting that violent. We're getting into really dangerous, uncharted waters.
I can't argue with that. Jerry, if members of the public want to reach out to you, do you have a public way for people to reach out to you that doesn't compromise you in any way? Do you have a website or some other means where public can reach you?
I have a tin can on the street at 54th and Madison. And I've
So
got
I'm guessing the answer is
so
no.
whatever they can do, and don't even feel obligated to take the pencils.
No, you know what? I'll put it up.
Really, people are trying to get away from me. You're saying, how can people get a hold of me?
But this is what I'll do.
After this interview, maybe I'm going to take the other opinion.
The show has a presence on Facebook. So, audience, if you want more information about Jerry, you want to go to Westchester Eye on the Radio on Facebook. And I, of course, will post the show. And also will post contact information for Jerry. You can even, if you want, you can even start a dialogue with Jerry via the Westchester Eye on the Radio Facebook page. So how's that, Jerry? How's that?
Whatever you say. You know, I'm here. Like I said, you know.
Gee, that was
I'm
easy.
Exercising.
I think maybe he's your fanboy.
I'm working out today. You know, trying to turn. Was it Clarence Carter? Trying to turn back the hands of time. Whatever I'm trying to do here. And I'm losing.
No.
By the way, how do you like your Colts this year?
The Colts, well, at least it looks like Andrew
45?
Luck's arm is getting better. And
Yes,
I knew Frank Reich. You know, Frank Reich, the coach of Indianapolis, has the distinction of leading the biggest college football comeback ever with Maryland against the University of Miami, and then the biggest NFL comeback ever in a playoff game, coming from 35-3 down
With the Bills.
when he was with the Buffalo Bills
Yeah.
to beat the Houston Oilers.
Yeah, I just have a trouble with someone
Did
whose
I answer
last
your
name.
question?
Yes, I just have a problem with
Looks
someone
like
who's.
they won yesterday, but they got a lot of work to do.
I just have a problem with someone whose last name is Reich. It reminds me of other things, but that's my problem.
That is your problem.
It's good.
Okay, that was frightening.
You set me up.
I know. I just wasn't sure you were going to go with it.
Okay, before
Ardina. Okay, go ahead.
I was just about to say you read my mind. I read my lips. Next week's show is going to be an interesting show because the entire show is coming out of L.A., and it's going to be all about how to adopt a dog, and where you don't have to jump through hoops and fill out all these elaborate paperwork. Also, once you've gotten that little pooch in your house, is what to feed the dog, and in addition, what you should eat yourself. We're going to have nutritionist to the stars, Elizabeth Alfano on, and we're also going to have Janelle Faraci from a group, animal rescue group, dog rescue group called Chai Angeles, coming out of L.A., and music is going to be provided by the Dunbar Band, which writes songs about, you guessed it, dogs. DAWGS.
And that'll conclude this week's edition of Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm John Charan, along with our Dina Seward and Peter Moses, and we thank today's special guest, Jerry Azar, for phoning in. Remember, you can listen to us again next week here at 3 o'clock on WVOX 1460 AM and heard worldwide at WVOX.com.
Let's go Sox.
Indeed, and enjoy the World Series, everybody.